The story of Doug Faneuil, to me, stands at the heart of this book, and at least for me, like so many good stories, it's the meaning. It's rich in meaning, and it kind of goes way beyond the mere facts of this. But you're right; he was the assistant to the stockbroker. He was 26 years old. He'd just been hired 6 months earlier at Merrill Lynch. This was his break on Wall Street, and his boss, Peter Bukanovic, Martha's stockbroker, was on vacation the week after Christmas. Doug was there manning the phones, when all of a sudden he gets this call from the chief executive of IMCO and all his family members who were dumping their shares. It turned out to be the day before the FDA turned down the company's only drug in the pipeline. So obviously it was going to have a devastating effect on the share price. So he doesn't know what to do. He thinks it's illegal for them to even to trade in it, which indeed it was. So he gets Peter on the phone, and he's telling him this news when all of a sudden Peter says, "Oh my God, we have to get Martha on the phone." So he then instructs Doug, this young 26-year-old guy, to call Martha and to tell her that the chief executive and all of his family members are dumping 100% of their shares. And Doug says, "Well, can I do that? Is that okay?" And Peter says, "Of course it's okay. That's the whole point here. You've got to tell her." So Doug reaches the office. Peter left a message. Martha gets the message, a message, by the way, that plays a pivotal role in the story at a later time, and calls Doug. Doug ends up being the one who takes the order. She treats him on the phone the way, as you may know, she treats many people that she deals with on the phone. He's left sort of quivering and fearful, and he does what she says, which is to sell all the shares after he tells her the news that everyone else involved is dumping their shares. So he, of course, once the investigation gets started, is pressured into various false stories. Now, I have to say, I went into all these stories with, I hope, with what was an open mind, that maybe these people were wrongly convicted. After all, Martha Stewart is still going around saying she's been persecuted for being a successful woman, and that she was telling the truth. She's still insisting on that. But here's the problem with this story. She sold the shares the day before the announcement, and the initial story that the stockbroker said to the compliance people at Merrill Lynch was, "Oh, this was just part of a tax loss selling plan." As you may know, if you sell stocks at a loss, up to a certain amount, you can deduct them against gains, and you can deduct them on your income tax. The problem with that story is that she sold the IMCO shares at a big gain. No one is crazy enough to sell shares at a gain as part of a tax loss selling program. So that impulsive alibi lasted for a little over 24 hours, at which point Peter, apparently in cahoots with Martha, cooked up this story that, oh, well, we had a prearranged kind of stop-loss order to sell at $60 a share. Now, the problem with that is they sold it more than $60 a share, but nevertheless, it was at least close. That was the story they settled on, and they wanted Doug to go along, which meant Doug could not disclose the pivotal information that he told Martha Stewart that the chief executive was dumping all of his shares. So under pressure, look, he's 26 years old. He's just gotten this job. He thought Peter was the best boss he ever had. He's talking about these advancement possibilities. Who is he to upset the apple cart with his boss and the office's biggest revenue producer, Martha Stewart? So he goes to the SEC. He goes along with the story. He doesn't exactly lie. He just omits all the critical information. And after a series of these events, the prosecutor says, "Okay, Doug, the next step is you're going to have to go in front of a grand jury, take the oath, and swear to tell the truth, and then repeat your story." And Doug, who was facing increasing problems with all of this, went home, looked at himself in the mirror, and basically said, "Okay, that's a line I can't cross. From my childhood, my education, it has been embedded in me that when you take that oath, you do not violate it." He'd already committed a crime, but he wasn't going to go any further. And he recanted, and he went in, and he was candid about what happened. Now, as he told the story to me, he did not exactly expect to be treated like a hero, but he was not prepared for the fact that he was now treated as a criminal. Like many other characters in this book, he went in and he initially told a false story and he corrected it. By the way, omitting a material fact is as serious as misstating it. And they wanted him to plead guilty to 2 felonies. They wanted him to go to jail. They wanted to strip him of his voting rights, to be banned from the securities industry for the rest of his life. And they threw the book at him for reasons we could talk about. And I'm sorry to say that in countless other instances in this book, including professional athletes who almost without exception, went before the grand jury and initially lied, and only when threatened with prosecution corrected their statements in many cases. And some of them had to be prosecuted, such as Marion Jones. Not one of them that changed their story was ever charged with a false statement. Karl Rove and Richard Armitage never charged with any kind of crime. Now, Doug eventually was allowed to plead guilty to a misdemeanor. He did not go to jail, though he could have for that, but he was banned from the securities industry for life. And basically, his life was completely upended.